My family is originally from a small fishing village called Catalina, Newfoundland. 4 to 5 miles north of Catalina is the even smaller village of Little Catalina. The surrounding area is covered in small ponds and bogs. In 1913 the town of Catalina held a dance for the local youth. My great-grandmother was about 13 years old at the time and was in attendance at this dance. According to her, a girl from Little Catalina came as well, walking the few miles. Her name has been lost to history. Well, that night it was unusually dark, and a fog rolled in off the North Atlantic. The dance finished at about 9 p.m. and everybody went home. My great-grandmother said that the next morning the girl's parents were riding in their wagon, stopping at everybody's houses looking for their daughter, thinking she may have stayed in Catalina with friends or relatives. One boy said that he has seen her walking up the road towards Little Catalina after the dance. A search party was organized, and for 2 weeks local men searched the forests and bogs while fishing boats scanned the coastline but never found any sign of her. Eventually everybody came to the grim conclusion that she must have gotten lost in dark and fallen into a bog hole, which like quicksand will suck you down. Months later one man claimed to have seen her floating over the bogs one evening. He said that he attempted to go out to her, but she disappeared into the forest. I suppose nobody put much weight behind his claims because he was a drunk. Years later, probably the early 1920s, my great-grandmother said that she was out berry picking in the bog with her sister as the sun began to set. She said looked across the bog and saw a girl floating steadily and smoothly over the ground. She said her movement was so smooth that there was no possible way that it was a person walking. Great-grandmother claimed to have seen her a few more times through the years. She passed away in 1991. In the summer of 2008, I was 16 years old. My grandfather and I were spending the summer in Little Catalina with relatives. Being old enough to drive, I spent most of my days in Catalina at the swimming hole. One evening I was driving back with a distant cousin, and as we were passing the bogs he pointed, "Put the windshield, what's that?" When I looked over, I saw a girl standing in the bog. Except the strange thing was her height. She seemed overly tall for the distance we were away from her, about 40 yards. I would have guessed that she would have had to been 7 feet tall, but her proportions didn't seem to match being that tall. I slowed down and I asked my cousin, who's a local, if he knew her. He said no. The girl then turned and smoothly and quickly floated away behind some trees. My cousin and I were genuinely freaked out, drove back home. When I got home, I told my grandfather what I had seen. All he said was "huh," and told me the story my great-grandmother had told him. He said over the years he had heard of people who had seen a ghost in the bogs, but always thought it was just a story to keep kids from playing out there since it was so dangerous.